Hello brothers and sisters, this is my new video. This one's actually not going to be on prophecy. It's going to be a two-part series on a house divided. A house divided cannot stand will be the title of it. The first part is going to be titled, Is the Racial Divide in the United States a Lie? Now again, let me reiterate, I'm going to be reading a lot since I have a terrible memory, so please bear with me. Every time there's a high-profile court case with white on one side and black on the other, or we have issues with the president's new policies, you know, our black president, Barack Obama, his policies or his strategies, anytime that people talk against that, it's always, in both cases and in other cases, it's always deemed to be racially motivated. But is there really a racial issue problem in this country? The cry has always come out that it's race, it's always race. A lot of these cries come from the same people, such as the NAACP and Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and other people, or groups affiliated with them. Now, when they all first started, I'm sure they had the best intentions at heart, but over time, there were certain people that used this divide that is it's justifiably based on our history to strengthen their agenda. They made it appear like this strong divide that once existed still exists. In essence, it took a personal ideological I have a dream message of Martin Luther King and twisted it into a I have an agenda message, which basically soiled the reputations of these other men. At this point, in this two-part article, I will show you who is behind this agenda and why. But in this first part, I will deal with only exposing the lie of a racial divide in the United States. As I begin, let me first plant a verse of scripture in your mind. Let's go to Mark. Let's go to Mark chapter 3, verse 25. What we have here in Mark chapter 3, 25 is Jesus speaking. And he says to the Pharisees and scribes, and if a kingdom, verse 25, if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. It's a very important clue to what's going on today. And I'm going to dig deep to give you the answer to this question, whether we have a racial divide in our country. All right, let's start with this. There are 8 billion people on this planet. And just like the Bible describes our bodies as our personal houses, this planet is a house of 8 billion people. Is our collective house divided? Oh, we all know it is. But we have to know where the true division is to know how to deal with that division. In what way is this divide most visible? What we need to do to discover a better picture is to look at the Eastern world and the Western world separately. Let's start with the Eastern world. In the Eastern world, there is a clear, evident divide. but it's not in every way. It's a religious divide primarily in the Eastern world. You have the Christians and the Muslims against each other. But is this really that cut and dried? The Western world looks at this stereotypically as Muslims are terrorists. But this isn't the truth, the whole truth. There are many good, honest Muslim people who don't hate Christians. Christians, likewise Muslims in the world. Is this the group that is focused upon? The Muslim extremists is who spread the hatred. That's the problem with the situation. Isn't the Muslims? There are many good Muslim people, just like there's many good Christian people in the world. It's the extremists of that group that brings all the hatred and teaches it. Now let's look at the Western world, particularly the United States. If I were to ask you where the divide was in our country, most would say that it's obviously racial, mostly black against white. What if I was to tell you that that is not true? What if I was to tell you that I could prove we don't have a true racial division? It is only made to look that way. Do I have your attention yet? Hopefully, what I am telling you next will gain all of your attention if you haven't given it to me yet. Yes, our nation has a history involving slavery and severe racial tensions. Though this history is real, those who I will better describe in Part 2 have an agenda that is helped by exacerbating the situation and then creating the illusion that it still exists. We now need to dissect this beast to better understand the origins. As I stated earlier about Muslims, there are also blacks and whites that have no hatred for each other. Most blacks and whites, for that matter, live, cohabitate from day to day with no problem with each other. However, there are those bad apples in both sides. No, there are most of both races that do not fit this description, but there are those in both sides that do. And again, like before, they're the extremes of both sides. While on the black side, you have groups such as the Black Panthers. On the white side, you have the KKK, skinheads, and other white supremacist groups. Now, if you look deep enough at the history of these two sides, you will find a common origin from which they evolved from. Again, I will speak of the originator as well as the white side of the equation in greater detail in Part 2. However, I will talk about the black side briefly to bring you to the point. As I said, it is the extremes who reveal the major divide, but it is much deeper than this. To give you a clue, ask people like Louis Farrakhan what the division is. Then again, he probably wouldn't give you a clear, true answer anyhow. Take a look at the extreme on the white side. Their original foundation was laid by Catholic men who in the world is considered the Christians. Likewise, by looking at the extreme black groups, you will find that the majority are also grouped together. The majority of the black extreme side are, like I said, the majority are converted Muslims. What this proves is that there isn't a racial divide in the United States. It's a religious divide. It's been there all this time, but we did not see it for what it was. We fight every day for racial equality amongst each other. For years, the blacks were fighting for racial equality. Now, it's gotten to where many of the whites are fighting for racial equality because they went to the extreme governmentally. But the truth of the matter, we never... Alright, let me take that back. There isn't a racial divide in the United States. It's a religious divide, with the rest of us in the middle. We're all in the middle of these two extremes, and they're using it against us. Now, they're using this lie on us to further their agenda. But what is their agenda? Even these groups are being used. They aren't the ones that are doing this. These groups are being used to further a fight, causing a fight, them to fight amongst each other, and we're all caught in the middle. Happens in the Eastern world as well. All these good people over there are caught in the middle. What is their agenda? The race wound is healed, but they keep ripping it open because they know that a house divided cannot stand. You heard me? That's where the verse comes in. They know that our house, if we are divided, that eventually it will fall. By them keeping us divided, they hold the controlling power over us. It should make everyone angry to learn that you've been used all of these years. But the best way to fight back is to stop using the hate card and start using the love card that Jesus gave us. God can bring the healing to those who will let Him. God bless.